Okay, so next up we're going to cover the second example. So number 2 in homework number 6, part A, also homework number 7. So we have the argument, no chihuahuas are obnoxious howlers. Some obnoxious howlers are young dogs. Thus, some young dogs are not chihuahuas. This is already in standard form, but let's just go ahead and double check it by identifying all of the terms. So again, just like we did last time, major term is going to be, we look at the conclusion first and foremost. So thus, we know that the third statement is the conclusion. Some young dogs are not chihuahuas. The major term is going to be the predicate of the conclusion statement. So this is going to be chihuahuas. So we'll just go ahead and abbreviate that with a C. Let's not jump ahead. Minor term, identifying the minor term, is going to be the subject of the conclusion statement. So the first part of the conclusion first term is young dogs. We'll go ahead and abbreviate that with a Y. So let's make sure before we go to the mood and the figure that the first two statements, the premises, are in the proper order, because that'll affect our figure if it's not. So the major term, the first statement, so the first premise, is always going to be the premise that contains the major term. And that'll be called the major premise. So the major premise is always on top. And we've already established that the major term is C, chihuahuas. And indeed, the premise with chihuahuas in it is the first statement. So we should be good. Let's double check. Minor term is Y, young dogs. And that is in the second statement. So we're all good on ordering. Next, we just need to identify the third term. What should be the third term is the middle term. It's the one that's not used in the conclusion. So we have obnoxious howlers. Obnoxious howlers. You'll see that's used in both of the premises, but not the conclusion. And that's why we call it the middle term. We'll just abbreviate that with an O. So we have C, Y, and O. So let's go ahead and fill out this standard form with just the abbreviations, because again, it'll be easier to see. It'll be clearer what our mood and figure and ultimately our form is. So let's go ahead and fill that out. No chihuahuas are obnoxious howlers. So no C, R, O. Some obnoxious howlers are young dogs. So some O, R, Y. And then some young dogs are not chihuahuas. This will be important to recognize that not later on. So some Y are C, or are not C. All right, so let's look at the mood and the figure to get the form. So for the mood, again, we just look at identifying A, E, I, O, the type of each of the three statements. This is no R, so that's an E statement. This is some are, that's an I statement. And this is some are not, which is a no statement. So again, top to bottom, we just take those three. The mood is E, I, O. And then the form, or the figure. So remember the figure down here. Remember this kind of diagram. There's 4 different types. First type, this is where the middle terms line up. Middle term is O. So if they're in kind of a backslash form, like I believe we had on the first one, which would be these two, it's a figure 1. If they're all the way to the right on the predicate of each of the statements, it's 2. If they're all the way to the left on the subject of the first two statements, that would be figure 3. And this one, like it is here, the two middle terms form kind of a forward slash. So that's figure 4. So just combine those two. And our form is EIO4.